So I'm Angela Timberman. I'm part of the Cohort team at Jungle Theater, and I have the privilege and the good fortune to get to talk to my friend Amber Brown,
Hello,
who
Amy.
is what you tell me. What exactly is your official title at the Jungle?
I am running wardrobe. So I'm currently the wardrobe supervisor on the show. And then I also help Trevor Bowen, the designer of the costumes for Redwood, remount the show.
Right. For I suspect a lot of theaters right now
Yep.
are putting shows up that they had to close down very quickly right before COVID. So tell me, uh, what has this experience been like?
But it's been really wonderful because this was actually the second show back to back that had been remounted, closing on the final preview before COVID.
Wow.
So I had just worked on La Boheme, which had opened right before Redwood went into tech. And so
And that
it's
was at Theater Latte Da,
that
correct?
was Theater
Okay.
Latina. And it was a pretty remarkable thing to watch something come back after having closed so quickly and having so much uncertainty about it.
Hmm.
Um, and Redwood was a really special one. I had not been a part of it the first time around, but being able to watch people come back into the space and take this show and deepen it in such a way, like everybody had had time to think about it. And the events of the last 2 years have changed everybody so much that being able to put that into this remount, but almost reimagining deepening of a show
Yeah.
was pretty beautiful.
Yeah, we're coming back. We're coming back different.
Very much so.
Yeah, we're coming out of a like a storm and
Mhm.
into a different kind of storm because there are certain expectations that everyone has coming out of COVID. And one of the things that I think that the reason Christina reached out to you is because I think a lot of people behind the scenes, our crews and the people who build the show and design the show and the people you don't see on stage are often overlooked, and they're part of the process, a really important
Mhm.
part of the process. So what was particularly challenging but yet exciting, maybe, or fun, or pick all three if you want.
Okay. I think one of the most challenging parts of this that I didn't actually expect to be as challenging as it was is how tiring it is to come back to theater, but particularly how tiring it, or just emotionally tiring it can be, and exciting at the same time to have a show that is coming back at a time when there is another surge of Omicron or
Because
another
it's all
surge
it's
of COVID.
always hard. It's always
Right.
hard.
But that this carried so much more weight because it never got to take off.
Hmm.
And the energy coming into the fitting spaces and the rehearsal room of this is so exciting, but also I'm really scared that this is not going to happen because there were other shows that were shutting down at
Yep.
the same time. And so everything that we were doing was this kind of navigation of this is so exciting, we're coming back. This, like, sometimes it was the first time people were on stage again, and you're
Hmm.
just getting all of this energy. And it's been a pretty wild experience to navigate that and to realize how much weight this is carrying
Yes.
for people.
So
um probably
what exactly are your duties?
So on this show, I assisted Trevor on doing costume fittings and making sure that his vision was realized. And because he was coming back to it after a 2-year break and had been thinking about it, for him to be able to say, oh, this is always the thing that I wanted this to be. I'm finally getting a chance to do this and making that happen. And that was incredibly amazing to be able to do, because it's so rare that you get to see something on stage, step away from it, and then come back and actually make it the way that you wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And also that, we are navigating who we are 2 years later, and especially in a contemporary show, that changes. Like, what is contemporary changes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Do you think there's any parallels in what the play is about and what is going on?
definitely. And I think one of the really interesting things about it is how much, one of the things that this play really tackles is where we come from, and having to do a lot of self-reflection and wrestling with some pretty hard parts about ourselves. And that is something that has been going on intensely for the last 2 years.
Yep.
And listening to some of those lines, I would not have listened to them in the same way or heard them in the same way 2 years ago. And
is there a particular line that hits you really hard that I'm just gonna, I think I'd like to just close out our little interview with you, like maybe giving us like a moment in the play that really rings true for you in the midst of running around getting people changed.
There's a couple moments sort of on a micro level. There's a moment between Drew and Meg where they're discussing picking scabs and what it is to like need to kind of pick your emotional scabs and how hard that is, but to be able to have somebody in your life that can be there and support it and pick scabs together. But on sort of a macro level, there's a scene between Bev and Stevie where they're standing on stage, and it's the first time that Bev sees the ancestors and has this moment of realizing that she's not alone and that this goes back so much further. And it's been something that I've been thinking a lot about on a personal level of who in our lives impacts us and not feeling as isolated. And having just gone through a loss of a family member and losing track of that, and how important it is to realize that we go back so far and that it's not always pretty, but that is what makes us who we are, and that all of these people are so important to us, and that we're not alone, and that we are now going to create that as well and continue that on.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I've always been grateful to have you in my corner when I've come off stage in a fast change or after the show, handing you off my dirty t-shirt or whatever. And you're just always a calming presence, and you're always so gracious. And I know the jungle appreciates you too. And I'm sure your cast is really grateful to have you in their corner.
It is a privilege to work with this group, and I've always loved working with you, and I look forward to working with you again.